here I am at another location, and this is going to be a different kind of video because I don't cover this topic usually, and it's something you probably are involved with. It's something very common. It has to do with relationships. Anytime there's you with somebody else and it's ongoing or long-term. It doesn't even have to do with marriage, romance, sex, any of those things usually attached to relationships. I'm talking about relationships in general with a broad view, something that deals with human interaction. And like I said, just ongoing. So if somebody that you've dealt with before, you're going to deal with them again, you're going to have interaction into the indefinite future, ongoing, so it's a relationship. Now, what I want to say about anytime humans interact, we need to be harmonious. Otherwise, it generates problems, and that's called karma. And you don't want karma because sometimes it just sticks with you and you get into repetition of that behavior. And that's generally what karma is. And if you stay in that pattern, stuck, then it's hard to have life. It wears you down like erosion of your soul. Now, to prevent that, you want to look into your interactions and see what happens, and if it's not harmonious, you figure out how you can learn from it. You either prevent the interaction, don't do it again, or you're going to... Oh, there's an interesting spider there jumping around. Oh, he's really jumping around. They're on the floor. I've got a bunch of spiders in here. I might have to let the chickens into this area so they can eat them up. Chickens love to eat those. I don't want them to eat all the spiders. Just the black widows and things like that. So, relationship of humans is by choice. Unless it's a forced relationship of some sort. Now, let's move on to the higher level relationships, which are ongoing, and they involve a commitment, and they involve some level of secrecy because it's private. I don't mean secret in the way of like, oh, we have to hide this from some people because they're definitely after us. I mean just secret because it's confidential. Nobody's business. And that kind of secrecy or privacy is just normal because you need that kind of a closed circuit in order to experience whatever you have agreed to between both parties. So when you're getting into that level, it's intimacy also. Now, it doesn't necessarily always imply sex, which is defined as the two physical bodies coming together, and also it's on the levels of emotion and mental, also spiritual, since you must believe in the spirit to be watching my videos. The unseen, the unheard, the force behind matter. Basically speaking, if the relationship involves depth and this privacy, intimacy aspect, then it's the higher level relationship. And here's the bottom line about these types of things in our society. It is really the most difficult thing that we do. It is the driving force of humanity. It's the spice of life. It is what sets sail to 1,000 ships. They say that about Helen of being taken to Troy, and the Greek ships went to go fight over her honor, her loyalty. So I'm not talking about relationships just in the fact that we all have them and it's all private and doesn't affect anything else. I'm talking about the relationships which are had by these huge influential world leaders, captains of industry, politicians, elected officials, trendsetters, decision makers, the people that are celebrities, the people who have power. The way that they influence the world is that it's an extension or expansion of the relationships that they're having on a personal level, like human to human. Usually you'll find one main relationship that they're dealing with. It's either an active, ongoing relationship or it's something from the past. The Freudian idea seems to say a lot about the parental-child relationship. When the child grows up, they're always still dealing with it. So there is a bit of truth to that. It seems to be the foundation of what's going on. So that's why relationships are so important. See, I'm not just talking about anybody, and on that level, it has major repercussions to the world as we see it. Because if a relationship in the life of world leaders is not harmonious, then this is being projected onto the world stage. I'm not going to go into specific examples. You can just imagine, and you just hear things in the news that are alluding to this. And that's why it's funny when people argue from their philosophy about politics that the person's private life should be kept out of it. We're just going to vote for them on their political ideas. Well, wait a second. Their political ideas are always getting affected by personal relationships they're having. So if we can find out that they have major problems in that significant area, that in fact that's the only area of life. There is no such thing as a politician or a world leader or a corporate leader that has privacy in their personal relationships. Sorry, you gave that up by becoming a public figure. And I think that this is the thing that really has to be understood. It's going to weed out the world leaders who can't handle their relationships. They don't have anything harmonious to have as a foundation. And because of that, they're disturbing the outer layers. It's going all the way outwards to the total public, the general public, the rest of the world, in fact. And this is a key revelation. Now, if you're thinking of just your small part of the world and the relationship that you have is going to be affecting people around you, family, friends, neighborhood, then that's where you can start. Now, if you're planning on becoming more of a leader on the world stage, then you should really think about this and try to get it right. Try to have harmony before you step up there. Now, I'm going to give you some pointers about how to do this. And I'm going to tell you why I know these things. It has to do with a long series of mistakes that I've made in my own life that I've been able to learn from, because I'm able to step out of myself and step out of the situation to look at it objectively. Like right now, I'm going to do it for you right now. I'm not thinking of myself as the person trapped in the perspective of the relationship. I'm looking at it as a person who is detached from it, like special omniscience. But by detachment, I mean that I'm not trying to take a side. Like, I'm not trying to take my own side. I'm just looking at it for what it is. I'm not trying to protect one party or the other. So it's kind of like an impartial jury would do, or a judge. Justice is supposed to be blind. You're supposed to see it and only focus on something that's really negative, and then provide the judgment, which means that you're going to start the rehabilitation from whatever problem there was. I mean, that's really the ideal sense of doing any justice or working things out through a court. It is through detachment. So when I look at it and I say, yeah, well, everybody's guilty. Number one, everybody's guilty of something. There is no victims. But when you take on each of the perspectives and what part of it did that person bring into it, because it takes two to tango. What did the one bring to the other, and vice versa, to bring on this karmic pattern of the relationship? Now with myself, I'm gonna name the problems that I've had, that I've done, and that I've been part of, that I experienced. Then I'm going to say, well, there is a better way, and this is it. This is how you can prevent the problem. Okay, number one problem is getting in too deeply and stuck with somebody before you even know them. Okay, that's like rushing in. Okay, that's been my biggest mistake. And I think that a lot of people may realize that about themselves. And if you haven't, well, you're about to realize it. And it's going to wake you up to, a whole view of truth, a view of reality. You see, two people often get together who have no good reason to stay together. They're not compatible. The advice, or the right way to do it to prevent this problem, is to slow down. To take it really slow. And take it easy. Let me take off my glasses. I'm in the sweat box here because it's like over 100 degrees again today, and the humidity is up. It's a good sweat box sauna. So I just gotta face that. When a person meets another person and they are open to a relationship, like they want it, in fact, it's verging on desperation. And I have to admit that to myself. It's like a passive, quiet form of desperation. Like we all want to be with somebody. We can't be alone anymore. So the person is going to take whatever, If the two people are ready to just jump in, it's going to happen. And this will escalate. They'll start hanging out, they'll start living together, they'll, put everything together, they'll start putting their money together, they'll start having babies, they'll start putting their business plans together, they'll start creating art. All these things start to happen much too quickly. So what I want to do is give you some specific guidelines, but it's better for me just to print them out in a book, and the video here is just going to touch on these things. It's going to introduce my whole philosophy about relationship. But I would tell you, if you stick to these guidelines, which will give you timing of things, then you're not going to end up with somebody you're not supposed to be with, like I did. And I've done it many times. In fact, it's pretty clear to me right now that I didn't end up with anybody I was supposed to be with. And I've been in a lot of relationships, so that's saying something. If I was not able to find anybody through all my dealings and travels and opening up to meet people, meet women, I happen to be heterosexual, except the fact that I did say that relationships involved with anybody. So even in my relationships with men, which were not sexual in nature and not romantic per se. I mean, we could be sarcastic about it sometimes, but no homo, but that is my choice, and it's my preference. You could say it's from social upbringing, peer pressure. You could say that. You really could. But we're not talking about undoing everything here. I'm not in that philosophy. And so many people are, though. I've been seeing this with the New Age and the huge liberalism movement out there, being liberal. You'll have all these people just get together and have an orgy, or two guys will just throw themselves together because to force themselves through accepting that, because they feel like they've been brainwashed since they were children to not do it. So in other words, to greet life with this openness and just throw yourself on anybody to prove that you can do it, that there are no restrictions, because as they're thinking, the restrictions have no point. Well, I just don't go with that philosophy. I'm not as reckless as that. I'm not as... In fact, I consider that another form of desperation and a form of major distortion in life. I'm just talking about relationships that we do tend to have and analyzing them to make it possible for the proper relationship to be created. The proper relationship has to be found. You have to know how to meet somebody. And probably here's another thing that I can tell you is one of my mistakes, is that I didn't know where to go to meet somebody. How to have that first meeting, because you're always going back to that influence on you. And if you had met somebody when you were drunk and you ended up getting stuck with them, then you're always tracing it back to that. That's like your mother being drunk when you were born. You're always tracing everything back to it. So that can be prevented. There's not much we can do about having been born. That's just what it is, so we could get a life. But after that, there's a lot of choice, and there's a lot of planning that really should be done. Again, let me just talk about planning, because that was another mistake. I didn't plan properly. I would just be in a situation and it ended up happening. And then it escalates, just hurry up, the relationship. Yes, we are boyfriend, girlfriend. Ooh, we're getting married now. It's good while it lasts, or it seems to be good. And don't get me wrong, I want to say there is a lot of positive things that go on. There are some positive memories that you can cherish. And it's like, we need to be thankful for everything. Like, hey, we didn't kill each other. Hey, we didn't get killed. Hey, we didn't die of starvation. Or, hey, we weren't alone and sad and depressed. But the thankfulness for the good things is not supposed to banish the critical thinking to where you're going to analyze the bad stuff that happened. Yeah, in fact, I think that people want to sit around cherishing their relationships too much, especially if the relationships end kind of funny, like if the person dies or there's other reasons that I can't think of right now, but if the relationship somehow ends and then the people, or at least one of the people, is thinking about it very positive and fondly, then they're not looking at all the negative aspects. Negative aspects are always there unless we choose to block them out. And I'll tell you what the first negative aspect is: the fact that the relationship ends. And that needs to be addressed, because it shows that you needed to have something and think you were dependent on it, and then you needed to lose it and go back to being, unattached and, oh my God, oh, this is terrible. The fact that it ended is the major sign. The proof is in the pudding. And we cannot just look at the good things about the relationship without taking it in context of the fact that it led to the end. The only relationship that's a good relationship is a lasting relationship. And that bears some meditation on it, especially before you get into a relationship. So it takes careful planning and careful consideration. Now, the thing about getting into a relationship is that you really need to know yourself very well, because there is no other way to know who you would be good with. In fact, I see a lot of people jump into a relationship because they think that the other person is going to find them and is going to decide where they're at in life. I mean, to an extent, you use the other person as a sounding board and to determine. You're supposed to be doing that on an intellectual level and also emotionally feeling it out. But this is only with a healthy relationship. If you do this because you don't know yourself at all, then it's totally the wrong thing. Because what's going to happen is that it will become a total dependency, and the other person will inevitably take advantage of it or begin to resent it and reject the person that they're doing so much for. This does not lead to a lasting relationship. That's not compatible at all. You need to go to the relationship knowing yourself and have a person that is coming to the relationship already knowing themselves. So these two people come together already knowing who they are and able to interact, to give that to the other person instead of looking for it in them. Can you tell me who I am and how I am? Can you do that? because I see that you know yourself. And if you know yourself, you're probably going to know me. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. That's very sick. It's very flawed and shows that the person is not awakened. They have no business being in a relationship. They need to step back, try being alone, and really get into themselves and know who they are and how they are alone. It can only be done that way. And it's just terrible that if a person can't do that, they're going to end up in all kinds of bad relationships. And anyone taking on a relationship with someone who doesn't know themselves, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. Stay away from those kind of people. In fact, tell them what I'm telling you right now. Tell them that they don't belong in a relationship. You could be their friend, but you really have to draw a line. And this is the thing. Here's another mistake that I've made. Well, actually no. These are things that I've actually done right with some people, but at the same time I was in the wrong relationship. I've had friends with people who I was considering in the back of my mind to become a future relationship. And I was handling it so that maybe I would get to know the person slowly and a relationship would come about. Now, I haven't actually had success in this, so that there must be a mistake in it. The only thing I can think of right off the bat here is that I was already in relationships that I shouldn't be in, and as some kind of a false balance, I was keeping other people around who were just friends, and thinking that maybe I'll end the one that I'm in, which is sick already, and I should end it, and maybe one of these other people are my friend that can become a relationship. And that doesn't add up to honesty with yourself or anybody else. You should not keep anybody as a friend under consideration of relationship if you're in a relationship. It cannot happen simultaneously. So the only time you can do it is when you're not in a relationship. So if you want to be having friends, you need to end the relationship that you're in, because that relationship obviously is sick. So once you've done that, and you've really done the hard work to face reality, then you can approach people, and I suggest new people, not the people that you're holding on the back burner. Find new people that you can then be friends with, and you can tell each other up front, I like to consider a relationship maybe after enough time, and right now we should be friends. So this is what we should talk about right now, and I'm going to close the video after this, because there's just so many things, and this is going to be a series. But what is friendship between two people that might be increasingly compatible and may eventually mutually decide to have a relationship, to have a committed, deep relationship, intimate relationship? Well, first of all, friendship is the greatest and most common relationship that people have, and it's probably the best thing going if there is true friendship and not a false friendship. And it's the best thing going because I find that intimate relationships in the world are often very bad because there's so much pressure on them, and they're holding it together under so much tension, and that's the thing that's really destroying the fabric of the world. Whereas with the relationships, there's not as much pressure involved. Friendships is usually a secondary type of thing, and it's used as a backup. But it doesn't affect the world fabric as badly. And I think it's so much more common. In fact, if friendships are not used as a backup, they're used as the only thing, because people that are not in an intimate relationship or a sexual relationship would rather have a friend or multiple friendships going on. So I really recommend this as a phase that needs to be properly accomplished. It needs to be a true accomplishment of friends helping each other get to know the self. I think the greatest kind of a friend to have is someone that you can talk about yourself, and they're going to be a good listener and give you some useful feedback. Now, the two friends need to be compatible. They need to be on some same level of life experience, and they help each other, not in some major way, because that's dependency. That's what you go to for an authority figure or a parent or something like that. Friendship should not be totally off balance, where someone's so high up and the other one's real low. In fact, the classic description is the guru-student relationship. That's not friendship. And that's another thing that we're going to have to talk about in the series. That can really become a sickness, because it can lead to intimate relationship where the one person is taking over the other one. And I've already kind of addressed that with the fact that the student doesn't know themselves. So the guru is not going to be allowed to have them in a relationship because it's taking advantage. So getting back to the idea of the friendship, the people need to be on the same level. And I recommend it between people of the same gender if they're looking for heterosexual relationship eventually in others. So that is to say, two guys, two males can be good friends, and they can discuss with each other what they're going through in finding the proper woman to be with. Okay, so this is the typical, very common relationship. But not enough can be said about it, of how it should be conducted, and how it also can be a lasting, ongoing thing. Now, I'll also say the other example is two women being friends because they're helping each other get to know the self and how they can find the proper man. So then you'll have the mix and match with homosexual situations where possibly you could see a man being friends with a woman to help each other look for the same sex. To tell you the truth, I don't have any experience in that, so it's going to be hard for me to explain. In fact, I don't really accept that it is feasible, but somehow people do it. I would understand it as somehow two women who were friends, not interested in each other, would be able to give each other advice of how to find a lesbian partner, and vice versa with the homosexual men. But again, I just want to talk about friendships that I have personal experience with, and I've kept in touch with people ongoing, because we are able to talk about things with relationship and kind of keep track of each other. And that's also a nice thing, because you get that familiarity going on, and that's what family is for. Family is connected with the root word of familiar. You want familia. Familiarness or recognition is just a comfort, because you don't have to go to somebody who's a stranger and just try to lay out all this information. Like I said, it takes time. So, in closing, relationships are a long-term pursuit. It is your lifelong quest. If you end up keeping one or more friends, into your old age, then you've actually accomplished something. Who cares about the money? Who cares about career? Who cares about... We're talking about friendship. They say the person who ends up with the most toys wins. Forget about that. Ending up with the most friends wins. And having a singular, lifelong partner, intimate, romantic partner, until your old age, forever, as they say in the marriage vows, that's key. If somebody really knows themselves and gets to find the right match for them, it's the greatest thing in life. And we see that it is also the worst thing in our society today because people don't have that. You can trace almost every problem back to the fact of the relationships. Thanks for listening. These are very in-depth and analytical, educational videos, and I hope you can watch the whole series. I also recommend lengthening your attention span. In that way I can be your guru or possibly your friend. Or who knows, after a long time, maybe compatible with somebody to have a deeper relationship. But it takes time, just like these videos. I'm going to turn the comments off for this. If you want to reach me, make a private message or reach me by my Gmail. In this day and age, nothing is truly private. There's somebody in the government always watching it, reading it, and butting in their nose where it's not meant to be. But hey, they really can't affect what we're doing. Maybe it'll help them learn something as well. Continue spying. Make your comments like I